Shin Matsunaga's Custom Zaku 2. Hey, what's up again everybody? It's Robert184, 2Rs2Bs, gundam.tk, and you've already seen the unbox here for Shin Matsunaga's Custom Zaku 2 and all the parts, good and bad, in the previous parts. Well, nonetheless, nobody wants their parts just splattered around on a table, so it's time to transform this into a mobile suit and see how it compares. And when he's all put together here, I've got to say on first impression that even though from the box you might think that this kit is going to look pretty white all around, that this guy is definitely going to have a lot of different colors to mix it up there. From the dark gray of the thrusters down there to the light gray for the feet and for the, especially on the knees and the parts on the chest. The backpack you're not really going to see from the front, but nonetheless the black piping that goes around all over the place and the seals are going to make a nice difference with the 573s. Down on the feet, the WW up there on the shield and on the shin. And more importantly, of course, yeah, it's funny to say shin here, but in the case of the shoulder one, that's really going to be the only disappointment. The color is going to be great to go along with the blue in the elbows. It's just unfortunate the way that seal is going to be done, and the yellow one is a nice touch. Overall, looking very cool, and definitely a long time coming from the old school 2000 HGUC Zakus. For a look at the articulation, lower body first, as you're able to move the skirts up this much forward and just this much off to the side. Hopefully that's going to make a difference there. The legs are going to do a pretty good job actually of going off to the side, more than 45. You can bring it forward there for a Char-esque MSV kick, and the knees, as you saw before, are hardly going to bend at all, but they're still going to look good doing it. The ankles down here, they're going to move this much side to side and this much front to back. Very impressive when you consider the front pose. The upper body is going to twist about that much, and it is going to move forward and back actually fairly impressively, and even more so stay in place. So it's great articulation in places here. The arm's going to spin around there. It's not going to bang into the backpack all that much here. The very cool shoulder with the uncool decal there is going to be able to move around and rotate there. The arm, no problem spinning there, and the elbow just over 90 degrees, nothing fancy. And for the shield, as you saw before, it's just going to move in and out a little bit, and a nice rotation. Height comparison now, where if you're talking undomesticated dogs here, you can see that the GX's over here, Wolfeniako's suit is going to be just a little bit taller in the head department, it looks like. Although the ears definitely help, but Commander's fin is going to give the edge here to Shin. But if you want to look at complexity and just general UC coolness, there's no doubt that the left side is going to have every edge. But speaking of recolors here, here's the Banshee in his destroy mode here, painted up with a little bit of gold, and you can just see that as the UC wore on, that the height of the general bulk of mobile suits got bigger and bigger, but they've still got some coolness here that has lasted throughout the century. And if you want to compare grunts, you've got Universal Century here compared to Gundam Age's first generation's Gafran here, looking very angry out here, but here you can definitely see the differences between the various centuries. But back to UC, where you can see that there's going to be some similarities here, except forget the Commander's antenna. It's more Dan Aykroyd style here on the right. Arming them up here involves some extra ammo that you can put on the side skirt there. The Heat Hawk is actually going to fit in there surprisingly well. Just remember that I'm not crazy about that weapons pack because of the damage that it's going to do to the nice 573 CL. But the Zaku machine gun's going to work out great. Good to see with high-grade Universal Century that it is going to have a peg in there, so it's going to fit in properly. And remember that you're always getting these custom wolf hands over here that you could also add a little bit of lining to if you wanted. Ground poses are going to bring up a familiar specter, though, as the Zaku machine gun, even though it's going to fit into the hand very well, is not necessarily going to fit into the arm very well, because this Megatron part here in the back is always going to be banging into the forearm, which means you have to have it at a somewhat awkward angle there. As you can see here, that even if you want to have them in just a regular standing pose, and I should mention that this Heat Hawk, very easy to dislodge if you're trying to pose them in any way, shape, or form. But when you take a look at the promotional materials around the manual in the box, the camera's always going to be shooting it at such an angle that it's going to try to make it look not so bad. However, really, you're not going to have that much luck, as it's going to be forced to be sitting at an awkward angle here. And you can see here that the wrist mount is going to be a little bit offset, but we've seen with some other ones, like the G-Cyphos, that they're going to be doing even crazier angles here. Perhaps that would have been order in order to deal with this back end here. But if you want to keep things tucked in tight to the body instead of having the weapon extended outwards there, it's always great to see this backpack and all the thrusters that are going to be on the back of the leg. Definitely a boon to have a revolving turntable with this guy on your shelf. But you can see that the rifle there is going to look a lot better, especially when you can train the mono eye down the sight. It's great that they give you a closed left fist here, but if you want to put in the Heat Hawk or another weapon over here, you can just see this, but you can see that it's got no actual way to stay in there, unless you've got it at just the right angle, and hopefully gravity's not going to pull it down too much. And though it is going to be looking a little bit small in hand there, especially without any paint on it, the ankles are going to do a surprisingly good job of maneuvering into various positions. It's worth noting that around the box they've got him in very few ground poses. The focus obviously is going to be to have him up in the air, but you can see that he's ready for a little bit of butter knife close combat action here. But up in the air with the help of an action base 2 or another kicking around action base from another Gundam, this is going to be sort of fun just because you can put him at various angles there, show off a bit more of the backpack I suppose. But more importantly, you're just going to be able to use these fantastic ankle bends down there. You can have the toes pointing down quite a bit, and no matter what angle you look at it from, you're just going to be seeing that piping and the thrusters. And obviously, the White Wolf is supposed to be up in space and up off the shelf, and it just feels like you're going to get a lot more play options. A nice clever bit here is that for the bazooka, there's going to be a peg on either side, and because they are going to be giving you might often just get this with a 3-finger trigger finger split, even though it's not going to be moving. For the right-handers, that's usually the weapon holder, but in this case, you can go and have him dual-wielding, not in the case of Asano and Beam Sabers, but instead... But here you can have him armed up as only a Zaku 2 can, and of course, if you've become a fan of Gundam since, it's sort of funny to think of different high-grade kits and all the various kits, Gundams and mobile suits in general that are going to be flying around with 50 million different weapons. For this guy, it's going to be a pretty simple set of 3, but I have to say that the bazooka is going to fit in hand there rather well, is because that bend mechanism is going to get it down and around, and you can see that it's going to look pretty cool to have him dual wielding here. Again, all of that mighty Zaku power. Also, it seems like it's a little bit easier, surprisingly, to move the bazooka in various positions there. Above the shoulder is going to work, and the shoulders have great posability anyway. Just the fact that you can take that guard down and move it all over the place. Compared to the beam machine gun, it seems to have even less trouble, even though the wrist did pop out once on me when I was trying to do some posing with this. However, at the end of the day, even though the weapons aren't going to be all that colorfully or intimidating just in terms of sheer firepower, the focus with this guy is always going to be helped by getting him up in the air, and again just focusing on the high maneuver part, which is what the MSV line is so well known for. So in terms of looks, this guy's an absolute winner, and in terms of posability, weapons, and playability, he's definitely got some good and bad things. And stick around and you can hear all my final thoughts in the verdict, but of course I want to hear yours, so please let your voice be heard with a comment down below. And as always, thanks for watching, stick around and let me know what you think. See everybody, thanks for watching. Oh man, you guys, did we miss White Day? Nobel's gonna kill us. Do you mean to tell me that if they had made us grunts in white and made our captains or commanders in different colors, and then put out our boxes and all they had to do was include a profile and people would buy us in all manner of rainbow colors? Yep.